Welcome to Don't Chuck It Up, the podcast where we help students and families navigate the wild journey of the college search and applying to colleges without breaking a sweat. I'm your host, Chuck, and today we are talking all about engineering. Yes, one of those very popular majors that a whole lot of students are considering, and most students have no idea what it's all about. I am not an expert in this topic, so I decided to bring in an expert. Today, my guest is Dr. Jennifer Stephen, an independent educational consultant with Lantern College Counseling. Welcome, Jennifer, and welcome to the Don't Chuck It Up podcast show.
Well, thank you so much, Chuck. I'm really excited to be here.
I am super excited to have you. Both of us have experience working with institutions that have engineering. So I used to do advising for students for engineering, and I have a lot of young men who ask me about engineering, and more women, thankfully. But I figured we'd do an episode because this is your wheelhouse. This is the thing that has been your passion. So I thought we would have you on the show to talk all about engineering. Before we dive into my questions, why don't you take a moment and introduce yourself and tell our folks a little bit about your background?
Right. Why am I an expert in engineering, and why did you invite me here? So it's worth noting I am an engineer. I have my bachelor's, master's, and PhD in electrical and computer engineering, my undergrad from Johns Hopkins, and my master's from Carnegie Mellon, and my PhD from Carnegie Mellon. And I was a professor of computer science for 14 years, and then I moved into administration as a dean. This was all at Wellesley College. In that role, I worked closely with MIT and Olin College of Engineering, the deans of admissions there, to develop double degree programs and pathways for students at Wellesley College to who had arrived at the college and then learned that they might want to study engineering, to have pathways to do that. Mm-hmm. I was there for a total of 21 years, and then I moved to Tufts University, where I still am, and I'll say a little bit more about that in a minute. I'm the Dean of Academic Advising and Undergraduate Studies for the School of Engineering at Tufts, and I oversee the student success of the undergraduate engineers and the 16 degree programs offered by the 6 engineering departments. I am also the owner and founder of Lantern College Counseling, you mentioned earlier, which is a practice to help high school students apply to college. And within that context, I do specialize in a number of things, one of which is engineering. And so I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about that. But before we do that, I do have to do a little bit of housekeeping, which is that I do have a formal conflict of interest agreement in place with Tufts University. I do not serve on the Board of Admissions at Tufts, nor do I have any role in admissions decisions at Tufts. And I just like to be upfront about that to start. I am here today in my role as the founder and owner of Lantern College Counseling, my independent educational practice.
Absolutely, and I appreciate you making that clarification for us. I had a similar conflict of interest way back in the time when I was working for both a university and doing independent educational consulting. So I completely understand many of us who have worked in higher ed end up switching into being college counselors at some point in time. And so we have to navigate that path between those two spaces. But I'm really also here to talk to Dr. Jennifer Stephen as the woman who has a lot of engineering knowledge and a lot of engineering background. I can't say there are many PhDs in engineering that I've talked to in my life. So I feel it's a real privilege and honor to dig into your brain a little bit about what is this whole engineering thing. So what the heck do engineers actually do?
So engineering at its heart, at its core, is all about creative problem solving, using math and science to solve problems that matter to you. That's really what it is about. You might design systems, you might analyze data, but in a nutshell, it's creative problem solving. If you're good at math, if you're good at science, if you enjoy that, if you can identify problems that excite you, that you want to tackle, then engineering might be the right direction for you.
I think you make a really good point, though, is that you have to be good at math and science and enjoy it, because I think some students think that, oh, I'll be an engineer and I won't have to deal with any math. And I'm going, no, there's math involved in engineering. And I'm sure you've seen over the course of your lifetime the explosion of various engineering majors and programs and emphasis. So how can a student really explore the world of engineering while they are in high school?
Great question. And in high school is one of the times to do it. And also you can continue exploring that in college, which we may get to in a little bit. But while you're in high school, certainly making course selections that help you learn. Do you like math? Are you good at math and science? And by that, I mean, going as advanced as you can in those areas that you can manage in terms of staying healthy and happy and engaged in other parts of your life that are important. But also, giving yourself an opportunity to learn. Do I really like these things? And, for instance, physics is a course that sometimes students may take at a variety of points in time in their high school career, but some students don't take it until later in their high school career, especially if at their high school, their physics course is calculus based, because very often you do the calculus first or in tandem with the physics, and then that means you can't do physics earlier. And physics can be a good indicator or a good test, if you will, about whether or not you, might enjoy engineering. And sometimes that comes very late, so it can be hard. But choosing courses, choosing electives beyond the math and science classes that your high school may offer, or trying like computer programming classes or engineering classes, CAD classes, or outside of your high school if you can. Certainly summer activities that will expose you to engineering or engineering related topics, getting exposed perhaps to, research that may be during the summer, perhaps with different, you can either try to define those opportunities on your own, or there are organizations that can support you to find those opportunities. And then do not overlook the home projects. These are, just what do you love to do in your basement, in your bedroom, in your garage? I have had students do such cool things. I've had students build an American Ninja Warrior style obstacle course in their backyard. I have had students build a website where they would actually, one day their father said to them, I wonder, something like, dang, that somebody's taken my parking spot again. They lived in a semi-urban environment, and the parking spot outside their home was taken again. And he said, I wonder if it's the same person every day. And the student said, let me figure it out, and set up a camera that was pointed towards the parking spot and took a photograph, of the regularly at periodic intervals of the license plates of the cars, and wirelessly transmitted them up to their bedroom and did pattern recognition to detect the actual plate, letters and numbers, and put it in a database, and then sorted and looked and gave it to his father as a website, who's in mysite.com. You can do lots of cool things that actually might be more distinguishing in terms of application materials than some of the more common activities that a lot of students do. But really, your question was about how can you learn more about engineering? And these home projects are a really, really rich and fertile ground for them.
Yeah, I think you gave a lot of great things for students to consider, both planning their academic path, so to make sure that they are taking the strongest math that they can, that they are able to handle appropriately. So I don't think we want students to think that they have to have calculus in high school. It can be very helpful, but it is not a required class for students to be able to be an engineer. I do really encourage students to be calc ready when they go to college, so plan on taking calculus, and most engineers are taking a few semesters of calc. Am I right?
In college, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Most engineering disciplines usually require a calc sequence of calc 1, calc 2, calc 3, and then followed by differential equations, usually.
Differential equations, the class that every student complains about, or they really enjoy it, but a lot of students complain about it. And then as far as physics, you're right. I'd see a lot of students, unfortunately, cannot take physics until they are a senior in high school. So they don't really get exposed to some of those engineering topics until they're a senior. But I love the examples that you gave of being engaged at home and in the summer. I had one student that found his grandfather's old fishing boat and then took the motor apart and reconstructed it and cleaned it and got it working again. It had been sitting for decades after his grandfather had passed away. I have another student who's really proficient in creative Lego building, shall we say, not following the instructions and coming up with something new. I've had students do VEX robotics or FIRST robotics or other types of things. I also think that students need to be aware that most engineering colleges offer summer programs where you can kind of dabble in engineering for a week or two and give it a try. And I'd rather have students do that than head off to college with no exposure to engineering and then really struggle in it because they've had no exposure in engineering. So yeah, there's lots of ways for students to kind of explore engineering as a high school student.
Yeah, when I was a high school student, I spent, it was either a week or two, I forget. It was a little while ago at this stage, but at Carnegie Mellon, which is where I ended up doing master's and PhD. And it was a program called WISE. I remember I had a t-shirt, I got WISE at Carnegie Mellon. And each day we were exposed to a different field or subfield of engineering. And I still remember the projects that we did, in particular, a few that stand out that helped shape my direction. So yeah, these can be really powerful experiences.
Yeah, and for those who are not familiar, WISE is Women in Science and Engineering. It's a great organization that many of the engineering colleges have. So I always encourage my female students to check out WISE because I think it's a great program and really supportive and helpful. And they have those summer opportunities as well. So yeah, lots of great ways for high schoolers to explore engineering while they are still in high school. So then right now, we're in application season and seniors are looking at applying or have already applied, and juniors are starting that process. How do they pick which type of engineering to do? Because on a recent article you wrote, I think, how many did you come up with? 16,
I listed
20?
15. I think there were 15 subfields of engineering, and we could generate more too.
Yeah, there's a lot. And I think for me, even as a counselor, it's overwhelming to look at the list. Alphabetically, it always starts with aerospace, and then it just keeps going down. And when I was working at the College of Engineering at Iowa State, there was only a few. And now I look at that same university and I go, wow, they've added a few more fields, and it just keeps growing. And now they have mechatronics and like all these other areas or polymer engineering. So how do students figure out which field of engineering they should try or go into?
Well, luckily, you don't necessarily have to know before you go to college. And if you don't know, then you want to be applying to colleges that support undecided students to explore. And that could be through support mechanisms, meaning, I can just share at Tufts, we have a My Majors Month. We have specific events that are tailored to help students understand the different majors, and there are many other examples of that at other institutions. The career services are always a resource. The faculty are a resource. Sometimes there are courses that help expose you to the different fields of engineering. So not only that, there's support to help you learn, but there's also what I call institutional or structural flexibility, because at some schools, there is not the flexibility to explore, to change your mind, and to maybe even, change schools at the institution. I call schools that do provide flexibility schools with low walls, meaning that if there's a school of engineering and a school of arts and sciences, say, it's possible to take courses across the schools. It's possible to even transfer in, switch majors among the schools, or do majors and minors between the schools, as an example. And I call schools that do not support that, do not have that structural flexibility, schools with high walls. And both of my institutions are good examples of those, meaning my undergraduate degree at Johns Hopkins has very low walls, exception, asterisk, there is a caveat there for biomedical engineering. If you're not accepted at the time of admission into the BME program, because, Hopkins is the pre-med capital of the world and one of the best BME programs. So it's highly competitive. And if you're not accepted into the program at the time of admission, the chances of your moving into it is near zero. But otherwise, the other engineering fields, you can move. And in fact, I started out as I switched when I was an undergrad. I started out as I intended to do CS and math, and I ended up doing electrical engineering. Likewise, my husband, who went to Hopkins as well, that's where we met, started as a physics major and moved to become an electrical engineer. But then my other alma mater, Carnegie Mellon, has very high walls. So if you're not admitted at the time of admission into computer science, that's it. And it's very difficult to even take classes across the different schools. If you're in that School of Engineering, to take school classes at, fine arts classes or, that type of thing. And so, this is a really important question for a student to ask. And they don't have to know when they go to college what they're going to major in. And there are ways to gain that clarity. Maybe they start out here. I have my hands, if this is someone listening, out wide, in high school, and maybe they narrow somewhat. My hands are coming together more narrowly to get a little bit more clarity. Maybe narrow it down. Well, I really hated AP Chem, so I think biomedical engineering, chemical engineering are probably not on the table for me, but maybe mechanical engineering is because I loved physics, or maybe I really loved physics E&M, and so electrical engineering might be a place. These are the types of ways that can begin to get clarity. And then if they don't know exactly what they want to study, and I work with a lot of students who do, they're like aerospace engineering, that's it. Or, they have a very niche interest. I'm working with a student right now who's really, really interested in aerospace engineering as an example, and very clear, and it's based on good information. That's an important piece as well. If they know, great, there are schools where might be a perfect fit for them because they admit directly to the major. But if a student has only come halfway, my hands are moving halfway together, only come halfway to sort of, the end result of figuring out what they want to major in, then they should be looking for schools that offer flexibility and support for learning about these different fields.
And that's a really great question that students and parents should be asking while they are visiting colleges, or even while they're meeting with college reps at their high school or at a college fair, is what is the flexibility within the College of Engineering, and can you change majors? When I was at Iowa State, we had an intro to engineering class that really all the first years had to take, and it exposed them to all of the engineering options within the university. And then by the end of the first year, they were declaring, because again, a lot of students came in going, oh yeah, I'm going to be a chemical engineer because Iowa State has a huge chemical department. But then they would learn about some of the other engineering programs and go, oh wait, I didn't know that was a thing. I'm going to try electrical engineering or mechanical engineering or materials engineering. And I think that's what's great about several engineering schools, is they allow you to start broad, and that first year is kind of the foundational courses that are able to be used towards most, if not all, of the engineering majors. So you don't have to lock it in, but you can go and lock it in. Keep in mind, I love that you brought up biomedical, because that one can be highly competitive. Aerospace engineering is another one that can be very highly competitive at certain colleges and certain universities. Those two, I think in particular, really stand out as, okay, some of these colleges, it's really hard to get into those particular programs, and they're very hyper selective. And other schools, it's not. It really depends on what type of college experience you're looking for. But those are probably the two that the colleges have to have a lot of resources to have biomedical or to have aerospace. So they tend to be a little bit more selective on the broad spectrum. So.
And you make a good point that sometimes it can be very difficult to find out the answer to that question, is, can I change my major? Some schools put it front and center on their website. MIT, I know it's very difficult to get into MIT, but they literally have a website that says something like, don't quote me, but, students come, they're a kid in a candy shop. Everything is available to them. They can be any major they want. But sometimes you can't find that information readily. So you're right. College fairs, or writing to their admissions offices or officers to ask that question, or speaking to a current student, in their area of interest or in the School of Engineering, to find out, what they may be able to share about this question, can be important steps for learning, whether or not this environment is going to be a good fit for the student.
Yeah, and when you're doing the college visits, especially at these large universities that have multiple colleges, taking a tour specifically of the College of Engineering and interacting with students and faculty in that college to find out those answers. Like, can you switch majors? Is it possible? How late is too late? Or do I have to apply directly to a major? So these are things that I want to put out there for students and families to think about and remember as they're heading on this journey towards a possible major in engineering. So we've been
One
Go ahead.
thing, may I just interrupt before you go to I'm guessing you're going in the next question, but if I might
Yeah.
interrupt, I have a ton of resources on my website. I publish very, very frequently. And I mentioned earlier, one of my areas of expertise is engineering and STEM, but the other is undecided students. After all, I spent 21 years at small liberal arts college, at Wellesley College. And at Tufts is a place with sorry, not small, low walls. And so we have a lot of students who come to Tufts and matriculate into the School of Engineering and really don't know what they want to study.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of resources on my website for the undecided STEM student, where good colleges to go to if you're an undecided engineer. So any listener who's interested in these ideas, head to my website, which I know you're going to share later, and take a look at my insights or blog. Take a look at my blog and see what you see, and hopefully you'll find some articles that can be helpful.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm really great at the podcasting audio type stuff. You are a phenomenal writer and can encapsulate all this stuff, the written word, a whole lot better than I can. So yeah, Jennifer has amazing resources on her website. A link to her website is available in the show notes. So head on down to the show notes and click on that. There's lots of resources. You also talk about things, like computer science and computer programming and computer engineering, another very popular area among students. And so I really appreciate you sharing all of that written material with us, for those of us who would rather read it through it than listen to me yap about it. So I appreciate that you have those resources about it. We've been talking about engineering, but I want to bring up another area that a lot of students may have never heard about. And when I describe it, I actually have students that go, oh, wait, that's what I want, which is engineering technology. So engineering is one of the most popular majors, but I see an increase in interest in engineering technology. So how would you explain the difference between majoring in engineering versus majoring in something that is engineering technology?
So engineering degrees, not engineering technology degrees. And by this, I mean majors that people have heard of, like mechanical engineering, electrical, civil engineering. These emphasize theory, design, and advanced mathematics. Engineering technology degrees, by contrast, they focus on application and implementation. So for students who do learn best by doing or want to move directly into an applied industry capacity after college, engineering technology could be an excellent option. Yeah.
Yeah, you explained that really well, and I want students and families to understand. I think they think that majoring in engineering, they're going to be out on the construction site putting the building up if they're doing construction engineering, and I'm like, no, most of the engineering programs that you've heard of are more theoretical and computer-based, really knowledge-based, in an office, where if you want to be hands-on and getting your hands dirty and hopefully getting your feet wet, so to speak, engineering technology might actually be the category of majors that are available. And engineering technology is available at four-year universities, public, private. There are some two-year programs that are out there as well. Really depends on what type of experience you want. But yeah, parents and students need to be aware that if the student wants to be getting dirty every day, engineering technology might actually be the better direction for them versus just engineering.
Yep, absolutely. Well said.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to students and families as they are exploring these engineering colleges? There's lots. There's public, there's private, big, small. What should they be looking for in an engineering program at a college? I've heard also about ABET accreditation, and is that an important factor? So what advice do you generally give to families as they are searching for an engineering program at a college?
Right. Well, a few things. I mean, there are every student is different. So the important thing to be asking is, what do you need? And does that, spend some time reflecting on yourself, and then research your schools, answer questions that we're raising here, right? And others. I'll talk about ABET. I'm making a note here so I don't forget in a minute. Is it ABET accredited, or which of the programs are ABET accredited? Are there co-ops? Who are they available, as an example? How do students learn and think? And for me, and how do you learn and think? And how does that school deliver, its engineering curriculum and education to you. And I'll just use myself as an example. You know, I did my undergraduate work at Johns Hopkins, as I mentioned earlier, and Johns Hopkins was founded as the first research university in the United States by Daniel Coit Gilman. And at Hopkins, research is king. You know, it is very much a research-based experience, and I did research as an undergrad, and then my master's and PhD were at Carnegie Mellon, which was founded by Andrew Carnegie, who is, of course, one of our country's great industrialists. And at CMU, you learn to do things. You know, a lot of its prominent programs, the programs it's most well known for, are applied, whether it be engineering, whether it be its fine arts, which tends to be very applied to, you know, graphic design, whether it be, it's one of the most extraordinary performing arts institutions or programs. And so, you know, there's a whole software engineering institute there. These business, the Tepper School of Business, like these are, it's a place where you do things. So there were things that I learned at Hopkins that I proved that I built at Carnegie Mellon. And that's, in retrospect, I didn't know this at the time. It was accidental. In retrospect, going to CMU was one of the best decisions I made because the applications-based education I received beautifully complemented the theory-based education that I had at Johns Hopkins. But the real reason I went, Chuck, this is kind of a secret, but I know it's going to go all over because they were doing a podcast. The real reason I went to Carnegie Mellon was not for that, was not because I thought, I didn't know that, right? But in retrospect, the real reason I went to grad school, actually, that's what I meant to say, not Carnegie Mellon. The real reason I went to grad school for engineering was because I didn't feel very confident after my undergraduate degree. I didn't feel like a quote unquote real engineer because I had learned so much theory. And you mentioned earlier about, you know, women versus men going into engineering. And, you know, it's a generalization. It may have changed since I was young, but I didn't have a lot of exposure to hands-on experiences. I was really good at math. And that's why I ended up in electrical engineering. It's one of the most mathematically based disciplines, engineering disciplines. And I started out as a CS math major. I started out as a CS math major and found my way to the double E department, in fact, because it had started as a joint double E and CS. But I really enjoyed the math and I didn't feel super confident as an engineer, even though I had all these good grades and everything. So that's the real reason I went to grad school, was to gain confidence as an engineer. I was like, I can get good grades and prove things and solve problems, but I really don't know about, like, if I build this control system, will people die, you know, because I don't know if right? I mean, engineering, and we'll get to ABAT in just a second because that connects to that. So I went to grad school and ended up choosing Carnegie Mellon, and I had no idea that it would be the best choice of all my options because it was so practically oriented. And I would actually build things. I was in a machine shop. I was actually working a lathe and doing things that I had not done as an undergrad. So that's something I would say to families is think about the way you learn and the if you will, ethos or character of the environments that you're looking at to see if there's a match there. You asked about ABET. I actually have a really strong article about ABET on my website that, you know, I track all my stats, and it's like one of the most visited sites, which always surprises me because I don't think that, you know, it's that interesting of a topic really in and of itself, but many, I think it's also one of the, you know, part of it is how many options are there out there for people to look at. So I don't think that people have written a lot about it. So those who are interested in the question, go check it out. The answer to your question is it depends whether or not, you know, whether or not ABET is important. It depends. It really depends on what you hope to do with your engineering degree. In some fields, it is absolutely fundamental. If you want to go build bridges, yes, you need an ABET accredited degree because you have the safety of, you know, people's lives in your hands. More modern engineering fields, such as computer science, such as biomedical engineering, it's really not that important. Unless you want to go maybe become a professional engineer, or you want to be serving as an expert witness in you know, court, those are areas where you might want to have an ABET degree that would allow you to then, be prepared for those pathways. But, I always say when people ask me, at Tufts a few years ago, we sunsetted ABET for the BME and computer science departments. And of course, we maintained ABET for mechanical engineering, electrical, civil, et cetera. That's another thing for people to know. It's not just that the school is ABET, it's individual programs that are ABET accredited. And there was a lot of stress around that with students. And even I heard in the IACA community or IAC community, what's going on with Tufts engineering? And I said, it's really very simple. It's just not that important for those disciplines. And it gives the departments flexibility to introduce more freedom as to be more creative and innovative with their curriculum. And I always use the example, you can go to Stanford's website, at least last I looked, CS department's website, and it says, ABET has no practical importance in the field of computer science. So,
Right.
So it really depends on the student, on their goals, on the field, about whether or not ABET is important.
So thank you for all of that information. That's really super helpful. For listeners, the ABET stands for the Accreditation Board for Engineering and Technology. You can learn more about that at abet.org, so abet.org. It really is basically a review by professionals in those fields to say, are you teaching certain courses? Are you providing certain experiences based off of what are the professional standards of that particular field? And as I think you explained really well, Jennifer, is that some fields need this, and it is part of, to be a solid program, it should be ABET accredited, but not all fields it is required. So if a college is not ABET accredited, I don't want students and families to go, oh my gosh, this is a bad program, it doesn't have ABET accreditation. That may not be true, particularly if that field does not require or mandate ABET accreditation for its graduates. So for more information, as I said, about ABET, check out abet.org. But you can always ask if a college has this. And I think it does say that, colleges are willing to jump through some of these hoops to get the ABET accreditation. I think that means that they really are putting some energy into that particular program. As I said, maybe not all of their programs have ABET accreditation, but it's one way to go, okay, they want this to be for professional engineers in that category, or legal intelligence and being able to testify in court and have the knowledge base of that. So it is helpful for some career fields, but not all.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, no, it's a rigorous outcomes-based process. It takes every cycle that we rotate around, every at Tufts, for instance, 8 years. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to get re-up that accreditation.
Yeah. Well, this all has been super helpful, and I really appreciate all the information that you've shared with us. I wanted to give you a moment to really share with our listeners and our viewers, some words of wisdom. I always give my guests a soapbox opportunity to share really whatever the heck you want. So feel free and share some words of wisdom for my listeners and my viewers.
Oh, well, thank you so much for the opportunity. Really, I hope that I didn't explicitly say this today, but I hope it came out that what matters really as a student is considering engineering colleges and universities, and there are colleges that offer engineering, is the experience that they would have there. Not the rankings, not the prestige, not the selectivity. And, a lot of people call me a STEM expert. It's hard to refute that. Yes, I am. But I resist that. I do resist that because I like to instead be called an expert on college thriving. That's what I really like to be called, because I have so much experience working with students after they have matriculated at a college and university over 30 years,
Mm-hmm.
Being on a college campus every day and working with students who are succeeding, having successful experiences and thriving. And I know what that looks like. And sadly, working with students who are not achieving their academic goals and personal goals as they relate to their academics, whether that be they had hoped to study abroad or they had hoped to have certain, extracurricular experiences. And there's a lot of data out there that shows what successful, thriving college experiences look like. And so, rather than just talk the talk about let's find a good fit for you, I feel I walk the walk in terms of really guiding students to look beyond admission and really see what they would be experiencing once they're on a college campus. And I actually call that I call that deep fit. This is a term that I've coined. Like a lot of people talk about good fit, I call it deep fit to try to express what I mean. And for instance, if a family came to me and said, Jennifer, we'd like to go to, they often say I'll say, my child wants to, let's say a student said to me, that's the better way to say it, I want to go to school in Boston, which is, of course, where I'm based. I would like to go to a medium to large university that offers, let's just say, mechanical engineering, and maybe they also want to play, I'm making this up, ultimate frisbee, whatever it might be. There's some things they're looking for. I could offer as good fit schools for that student, BU, Northeastern, MIT, Harvard, and Tufts. And these are all very, very different places with very different cultures, and students might have very different educational experiences. And there are some students who might go to MIT and soar, and others that might go there and be overwhelmed and drown. There might be some who go to Northeastern and feel like they totally fit in with that co-op culture, and others who don't get their bearings and their roots and don't really feel that that community is a good fit for them. And so I always say that all of those schools could be good fit schools for a student, but a deep fit school, again, that's my terminology, is a school where they will thrive. They will not be drowning. Yeah. They will be having those experiences that we know are transformative and impactful, professors that care about them, and, deep engagement with extracurricular activities. And there's, a lot of other, experiences like that. And so I steer my students to find deep fit schools. And I do that by saying, you need to reflect on yourself. You need to reflect on the schools deeply. So you shouldn't just be saying, it's look at it quickly and a few quick things. No, you really need to spend time learning about those schools. And then in your application, I say you make a deep fit application, which is you say, hey, school, I see myself thriving on your campus. Let me show you. I'm going to show you me thriving on your campus, because every school wants to admit students who thrive, So everybody, we all want our students on our campuses to thrive. So that's my advice to families: is don't just is look beyond the rankings, look beyond the superficial features to really get a sense of what you would be doing day to day on that campus. And is it aligned with who you are and what you want, what you seek, what you value? So that's those are my parting words, if you will.
I absolutely love all of that information. I love that you shared your philosophy on deep fit. I also agree with that philosophy, and my engineering students have really been willing to explore a wide variety of areas. So one of my favorites in Boston is the Wentworth Institute of Technology, which most students have never heard of. And, if you're not a kid with a, 4.0 and a perfect test score, you need a place that is still going to offer great engineering opportunities. Like, you have to find the fits for that as well. And I always want to give a shout out. I mean, you've really you've attended and worked at some of the most well-known institutions. And I think students and families also need to be aware that name recognition isn't as important in engineering. It's really what type of education you get. So I've had students go to, Michigan State, Oregon State, Cal Poly Pomona. I've had them attend New Mexico State, and they've gone to places where students have never heard of. Some of my favorites also are like Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology, or Illinois Institute of Technology, or Rochester Institute of Technology. Those institutes of technology people have never really thought about. And I'm just going, if you like engineering and technology, there's a whole classification of colleges called the technological institutions that you might want to check out. So I appreciate you sharing your thoughts on that deep fit. And it really is about making a match academically, socially, financially, holistically, because as you're well aware, a lot of kids don't make it through as an engineer major. So we need to make sure that they are getting the support that they need both in and out of the classroom so that they are going to be a successful future engineer.
Right. It's so much more than getting in. It's what you do after you get in. It's not where you go to college. It's how you go to college, or what you do while you're in college. And who cares if they get in if they can't graduate, right? I mean, that's not a recipe for success in life, right? So yeah, I think we're each preaching to the choir in each other.
Well, that's what we do as independent educational consultants. We try and help families understand this is a journey and an overall match, not just about the pure name of the institution that you are applying to, because it may not be the right fit. It might be a name that you recognize, but it might not be the right fit for you.
Yeah, another thing I can leave your listeners with is I had the great privilege of interviewing Dr. Rob Plater, who's the founder and CEO of Boston Dynamics. And if you don't know about Boston Dynamics, any listeners, go Google it, and you will realize you do know about it because it's all over. It's in Hollywood. It's on, TV and, all sorts of exciting places. So you've seen the robots before. But Rob, check out my interview of him, but Rob started at a junior technical college in Ohio. He transferred to Ohio State. He later went to MIT for his master's and PhD. You can start anywhere. And in his interview, he says, yes, of course, we hire from the MITs and the Carnegie Mellons, but we hire from many other places. Technical colleges, and also the bike building industry and the boat building industry. The point is, you to have skills, you have to distinguish yourself in one way or another, right? And so there are many pathways to an engineering career, and being able to actually show some skills is you can build those skills from many places.
Absolutely. That's a great final message, and I appreciate you sharing that. And for families who are listening and watching on YouTube, check out Dr. Jennifer Stevens' website, Lantern College Counseling. It is going to be linked in the show notes, so check that out, lanterncollegecounseling.com. Jennifer, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you sharing all of your knowledge with us, and hopefully this has helped students and families prepare for a journey to find the right fit for them in engineering.
Yes, I hope so as well. Thank you so much. This has been fun. And I wish everybody well on their college search and application journeys.
Well, folks, that's all the time we have for today, but fear not, we will be back next week with more tips and tricks to help you conquer the college application process like a boss. Until then, remember, don't chuck it up.